Sometimes you have to make strategic career decisions that other people just don't understand. Look before you judge me. Hit that like button if you enjoy my content, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new here. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this whole mess unfolded. I'm Bethany, I'm 29, and I work in academic research. My fiancé, Eli, is 31 and works in finance. We'd been together for 2.5 years, engaged for 6 months with our wedding, just 2 months away when I had to drop some news on him that I knew he wouldn't handle well. The truth is, Eli has always been a bit emotionally fragile when it comes to anything involving my past relationships. He gets all wounded and dramatic about the stupidest things. So when I walked into the kitchen that Tuesday evening while he was going through our wedding venue invoices, I knew I had to approach this strategically. Babe, I need to tell you something about my name after we get married. I said, using what I call my professional announcement voice, calm, matter of fact, no room for argument. He looked up from his laptop, probably expecting me to say I wanted to keep my maiden name, which would have been totally reasonable, but that wasn't the situation. I'm going to hyphenate, I told him. Okay, lots of people do that, he said, looking relieved. Not with your name, with Anthony's. I watched his face change as he processed this. Anthony is my ex-boyfriend. We dated for 4 years, broke up 3 years ago. The thing is, all my published research papers are under Cordelia Hampton Fitzgerald. That's the name I've been using professionally for years now. You never took his name. You were never married, Eli said, putting down his coffee. Here's what Eli doesn't understand about academia. It's all about connections and recognition. When Anthony and I were together, I started using his surname for networking purposes. The Fitzgerald name carries serious weight in academic circles. Anthony's father is the dean of my department, and honestly, that connection has opened doors for me that would have stayed locked otherwise. It's not like that. It's just professional. I explained, but I could see Eli getting that wounded puppy look that he gets when his feelings are hurt. So, you've been publishing under your ex-boyfriend's name this entire time we've been together. The way he said it made it sound so much worse than it actually was. I mean, yes, technically that's true, but he was making it emotional when it was purely practical. You're making this emotional when it's purely practical, I told him. Makes sense, he said, pulling out his laptop. Totally understand. I felt this huge wave of relief wash over me. Thank God. I thought he'd freak out and make this into some big dramatic thing about respect and commitment or whatever. Really? Oh, thank God. I thought you'd make this difficult. Nope. All good, he said, opening our wedding website. I should have paid more attention to what he was doing, but I was just so relieved that he wasn't going to be a pain about this. I went upstairs to change out of my work clothes, feeling like I dodged a major bullet. 20 minutes later, my phone started ringing. It was Tessa, one of my bridesmaids. What the hell is this about Eli not showing up to your wedding? She demanded. What are you talking about, Lansley? Check your wedding website now. I pulled up our site on my phone and nearly dropped it. The header had been changed from Bethany and Eli's wedding to Bethany and Eli's wedding, attendance TBD. The invitation section now read, "You're invited to celebrate the union of Bethany Hampton Fitzgerald and Eli Morrison. Still deciding if I'll show up." I ran downstairs. What the hell did you do? I'm making my own professional announcement, he said without looking up from his laptop. This isn't funny, Eli. Change it back. Ask her about keeping Anthony's name. He called out loud enough for Tessa to hear through my phone. The room went dead quiet. Then I heard Tessa's voice. Anthony, your ex. Anthony, are you insane? That's when I knew this was going to be a problem. Over the next few days, my bridesmaids went into full damage control mode. Tessa, Bailey, Kyla, and my sister Ava all showed up at our apartment while I was at work to stage some kind of intervention with Eli. When I got home, I found them all in my living room looking defeated. How did it go? I asked. He's being completely unreasonable, Tessa said. We tried everything. What do you mean everything? Bailey jumped in. We explained how academia works, how publishing credentials are everything. He just kept saying you never married Anthony, so it's not even your legal name. He said you're cosplaying as Anthony's wife professionally while dating him, Ava added. His words, not mine. The fight that followed was epic. Eli was acting like I had personally betrayed him by keeping a name that has been crucial to my career development. You had my bridesmaids ambush me without telling me, he said. They were trying to help you understand the situation. The situation where my fiancé wants to take her ex-boyfriend's name to our grave, it's not about Anthony. It's about my career. Your career that you built by pretending to be connected to your ex. I ended up staying at Ava's that night because I couldn't deal with his dramatics anymore. But here's where things got really interesting. Eli apparently has a friend named Cullen who works at the same university as me, just in a different department. Academic circles are small, and Cullen did some digging for Eli. Turns out every single one of my published papers was co-authored with Anthony. Every conference I've spoken at was organized through the Fitzgerald family's academic connections. I wasn't just keeping Anthony's name for recognition, I was keeping it for access to opportunities that I never would have gotten otherwise. When Eli texted me asking how many of my papers would have been published without Anthony's name on them, I didn't respond, because the answer was probably none of them, and I wasn't about to give him that satisfaction. Then Anthony himself called Eli, which was absolutely not what I needed. I heard about the name situation, Anthony told him. I want you to know I had no idea she was still using it. Really, Eli said. Well, I mean, I knew she was using it professionally, but I assumed she'd stop when you got married. It's actually kind of weird for me, too. Then why haven't you said anything? My dad likes her work. He thinks she's an asset to the department. I was told not to make waves. When Anthony told me about this conversation, I was furious. He was supposed to have my back on this, not make me look like some kind of manipulative opportunist. I decided to try a compromise. When I came back home, I told Eli I'd hyphenate with both names, Hampton Morrison Fitzgerald. No, he said immediately. Why not? Because you're still including your ex's name. Also, that's not a compromise. That's you getting everything you want, plus my name as a participation trophy. That's when I had to come clean about something else. I already submitted my tenure application under Hampton Fitzgerald. If I change it now, I'll have to resubmit everything. It could delay my tenure by years. You submitted for tenure without telling me. I was going to surprise you when I got it. With your ex's name attached, he was being so dramatic about this. God, why are you so obsessed with Anthony? I'm not, you are. You're literally trying to take his name to your grave. What do our future kids call themselves, Morrison? Or do they get saddled with Fitzgerald too? I hadn't really thought about kids yet. My career was just getting started. Of course you hadn't. You're too busy thinking about your career built on your ex's family name. Then my mother got involved. Daphne called Eli directly, which was completely inappropriate. Darling Bethany tells me you're having concerns about the wedding. I'm having concerns about her keeping her ex-boyfriend's name. It's just pragmatic, dear. Surely you understand that. Would you have taken your ex's name if it was pragmatic? Sir, that's different. I wasn't building a career. So you're saying your daughter is choosing her career over her marriage. My mother actually went silent at that which never happens. She can have both. Not with me, she can't, Eli said. When my mother tried to guilt him about the deposits and the guests flying in, he offered to reimburse her for half and told her the guests could still come. He just might not be there. I was getting desperate, so I did what any rational person would do. I created a PowerPoint presentation explaining why keeping Anthony's name was the logical choice. I had graphs, citations, a timeline of my publications. Slide 12 was titled Cost-Benefit Analysis of Name Change. When I showed it to Eli the next morning, he actually laughed. You made a PowerPoint to convince me to let you keep your ex's name. I'm being logical. You're being insane. This is my career, and this is supposed to be our marriage. I slammed the laptop shut. Maybe we should postpone the wedding. Maybe we should cancel it. We stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, I said, I'm not changing my professional name. Then I'm not changing my RSVP status. I thought he was bluffing. Eli has always been weak when it comes to confrontation. He backs down from everything. But apparently this was his line in the sand. When I sent out correction emails to all our guests saying the wedding website had been hacked and to disregard the RSVP changes, Eli sent out his own email an hour later with screenshots of our text conversations about the name issue. The subject line was, "Not hacked, just honest." My father called Eli directly after that. "Son, you're humiliating my daughter. She's humiliating herself by clinging to her ex's name. It's just business. A marriage isn't business unless she's marrying me for business reasons too." But then my grandmother Evelyn reached out to Eli, which was the last thing I needed. Evelyn is 82 and doesn't care about anyone's feelings. "Ethan, dear, I need to tell you something about my granddaughter," she told him. "She dated that Fitzgerald boy specifically because of his family name. She told me herself she'd never have gotten into that PhD program without his father's recommendation. She used him, and now she's using you for stability while keeping her foot in his door." When Eli told me about this conversation, I wanted to kill my grandmother. She had no right to share private family conversations. "Why would she tell you this?" Eli asked. "Because you seem like a nice boy who deserves better than being someone's backup plan." The next day, Eli did something that almost gave me a heart attack. He called the venue and canceled his portion of the payment. Since we both needed to have our cards on file, they required full payment up front without his contribution. The venue says you withdrew payment. I called him screaming. The wedding is in 2 weeks. What wedding? I haven't decided if I'm showing up. Remember, they want $15,000 immediately or they'll cancel. Better call Anthony. I'm sure the Fitzgerald name can help. I actually did call Anthony to try to get his family to cover the venue. I mean, they're members of the country club where we were having the reception. It wasn't that unreasonable. Anthony called Eli an hour later. "Dude, your fiancé just asked me to pay for your wedding venue." "She's not my fiancé anymore." "She doesn't seem to know that." I was running out of options, so I scheduled a meeting with a lawyer to see if I could sue Eli for breach of promise since we were engaged. The lawyer, who apparently knew someone who knew Eli, told him about my visit. "You want to sue your fiancé for not marrying you while you keep your ex-boyfriend's name?" the lawyer had asked me. I left without hiring him. The week before our supposed wedding became a complete circus. I moved back in with my parents, but kept going to the apartment to collect things and try to talk sense into Eli. I may have practiced what I was going to say a few times in the hallway before ringing the doorbell, but that's just good preparation. Finally, I sent him an ultimatum email and copied both our families. "Dear Eli, after much reflection, I'm willing to compromise. I will legally change my name to Morrison, but continue publishing under Hampton Fitzgerald. This is my final offer. If you don't accept, I'll be forced to proceed with the wedding alone, and explain to our guests why you chose to abandon me over something so trivial. Love always, Bethany." Well, she replied to everyone, "Dear Bethany, a marriage where you take my name legally but use your exes professionally isn't a compromise. It's a deception. You be Mrs. Morrison at home and Mrs. Fitzgerald at work. I won't be anyone's part-time husband. Also, a wedding alone is just called a party. Eli, P.S., still deciding on attendance." My bridesmaids created a group chat with Eli called Save This Wedding. "You're destroying her life. She's crying constantly," Tessa wrote. "The deposits are non-refundable," Bailey added. "I'm her sister, and even I think you're right, but please just cave," Ava wrote. Eli responded by sending each of them a Venmo request for $3,750, their portion of the wedding if they wanted to save it so badly. They all left the chat. But then something happened that made everything so much worse. Cullen had done more digging and found out that on my last 3 papers, Anthony had done 90% of the work. I was basically just a name-only co-author riding his coattails. Anthony's new girlfriend found out about the whole situation and was pissed. She called me directly. "Stop using my boyfriend's name or I'll go to the university ethics board about the fake co-authorship," she threatened. I called Eli sobbing. Anthony's girlfriend is threatening me. That's good. My career could be ruined. The career built on your ex's name, that career, you don't understand. Without those papers, I won't get tenure. Then maybe you should have done your own work instead of riding the Fitzgerald train. I woke up on what would have been my wedding day to 73 text messages. The bridesmaids, both families, random guests. Everyone had been busy overnight. At 3 in the morning, I texted Eli, "I'm at the venue in my dress. If you don't show up, I'll never forgive you." He replied, "I never forgave you for keeping Anthony's name." I decided to go through with it anyway. The venue was fully decorated, guests were showing up confused, and I was in the bridal suite having what I'll admit was a bit of a meltdown. When Eli showed up in jeans and a t-shirt, my father approached him. "You came to your senses." "Nope, just came to return this." Eli handed him my engagement ring. "You're really doing this here now?" "Either ain't. She really kept her ex's name here now." My mother tried next. "Eli, please just think about what you're throwing away. A future where my wife publishes under her ex-boyfriend's name, I have thought about it." Then I emerged in my full wedding dress and saw him standing there. For a second, I thought he changed his mind. "You came," I said, running toward him. "To say goodbye," he said. I stopped dead. "What, I'm not marrying someone who values their ex's name more than our relationship. It's just a name. Then change it." "I can't." "Then I can't marry you." The entire room was watching. Guests were filming. Ava was trying to do damage control, telling people it was performance art. In a moment of desperation, I threatened him. "If you leave now, I'll tell everyone you're gay." He laughed, actually laughed. "Go ahead, tell them I'm gay. At least then they'd understand why I don't want to marry someone who's obsessed with their ex-boyfriend." Here's the thing that made everything infinitely worse. Anthony and his girlfriend were there. I'd invited them to show there were no hard feelings, which in retrospect was a terrible idea. Anthony's girlfriend stood up. "Actually, Bethany, tell them about how you asked Anthony to leave me last week so you could keep using his name without drama." The entire room went silent. Anthony looked stunned. "You, what? That's not, I didn't," I stammered. She pulled out her phone. "I have the text. You said, and I quote, 'If you really cared about my career, you'd understand why I need this.'" Anthony stood up. "We're leaving. And Bethany, I'm filing paperwork with the university to have you removed from all future publications. Use your own name." They left. Half the guests left. I turned to Eli, my makeup running. "This is all your fault." "No, this is all yours. You chose a name over a marriage." And that's sure anything he left too. I had the reception anyway. 20 people showed up out of 200. I gave a speech about choosing myself that someone posted on social media. The comments were brutal. The university opened an ethics investigation into my publications. Anthony's father removed me from 2 upcoming conferences. My tenure application was denied. 3 months later, I had to move back in with my parents because I couldn't afford the apartment alone. The academic community is smaller than you think, and word spreads fast about ethics violations. Last week, I texted Eli from a new number. I would have changed it eventually. "Would have, could have, didn't," he replied. "I'm keeping Fitzgerald professionally. It's who I am now. Cool, stay single professionally, too." Then he blocked me. Look, I get that people think I should have just taken his name and forgotten about my career, but they don't understand how hard I worked to build those professional connections. Between us, I probably should have handled it differently, but I'm not going to pretend that keeping Anthony's name wasn't the smart career move. Eli's apparently dating someone new now, some girl from his gym who doesn't even use social media. When someone told me she said she'd take his name because Morrison sounds badass, I wanted to throw up. My grandmother called me last week. "You made your choice, dear. Hope it keeps you warm at night." I'm still on dating apps listing myself as Bethany Hampton Fitzgerald because that's who I am professionally, and I'm not changing that for anyone.